All right. So by one vote, Ash Dex won. By one single vote at the last second. I think that Ash Demacia makes sense in kind of like the same exact way that Ash Noxus was kind of like meant to from the start. So we always have to start by asking ourselves like what the rules of the deck build are. And this is kind of like why Shadow Isles felt like it just doesn't make enough sense with Ash in terms of all the different things you can do with Ash and all the different things you can do with Harrowing. Which is Ash wants a mid-range strategy. Plain and simple. Her level up condition is a win condition for mid-range strategies. It's only good when you have good ownership of the board. You need like beef to be able to win the game off of this flip. Otherwise, it does nothing. And freezes in general are kind of a mid-range utility tool. I think a lot of people see freeze as like a control tool. And they're not necessarily bad for that. Like they have that flexibility. But if you're using a freeze, like the value, what you're paying for with a freeze is the ability to like win a combat exchange and have your units deal damage to their units. If you're freezing an attack onto like an open board, you're not really like getting your money's worth out of the freeze in most cases, right? But a really nice thing about Demacia is they're providing a very similar thing, right? Demacia also has some kind of like decently statted units. Single combat is a different tool from Culling Strike. They'll do fairly similar things because of the interaction with freeze. There's some cases where single is better, some cases where culling is better. And most importantly, I think there's a few tools, like I think people that build Ash with Demacia overlook some really good tools, like for example, Screeching Dragon. I think Screeching Dragon is kind of like the perfect card for what Ash decks want to do. Sometimes you have the ability to just like, you know, challenge a big freeze. You've got a nice 5-drop curve with Ash. You can challenge like a frozen unit and just like eat something for free. Dragon's just a nice beef card in general. Like it's just like kind of the perfect 5-drop for the video game. It's got good enough stats to just be a stat monster, but it has really powerful utility in addition to that. Honestly, Ash is powerful enough that I do think I want Bjerg to pull it specifically. I think I'll actually just run 3 Bjerg. I think just because of the nature of this deck with Fiora and with the identity of all these freezes, I think single is going to be better than concerted. I can easily try to fit in concerted in this deck. It's a good card. But I think with Harsh Winds being what it is, and because we have stuff like single combat already, there's actually a chance concerted gets kind of edged out between those options here. Might still be like a 1 of or a 2 of. But I think the deck build has a ton of potential. Like this should make a lot of sense in those matchups. Where I have bad draws early and I'm like too spell heavy early, Kindly Tavern Keeper actually helps those game states because usually the opponent will be on like some kind of pressure draw. And it's like just a decent turn 3 play. We don't burn mana. And it helps our like healing damage units against like Flock is nice. But also, like, healing Fiora can sometimes make the difference. So, like, 1 Kindly Tavern Keeper could make sense. Trundle Braum. So, we kick both single combats here. I think this is definitely a Stalking Wolf kick as well. -1 Harsh Ones for Relentless. I was thinking about it. I could totally see that. I think if I was going to cut something for a Relentless, that's what it would be, yeah. That's what it would have to be. So, here, I think we can just... So Banking the Mana doesn't really do enough here because we only have Brittle Steel. I think I actually will just play the Sentry out. Sentry is kind of nice with Trapper as well. Like, some board states, it actually does inevitably accelerate the Trapper value. Alright, Snowhair, you're about to go nuts. First time I've seen this card in like 6 months and we're both running it. Poor Trapper. Maybe I can bait him into attacking my Fiora. Scargrounds is actually not bad in games like this though. By the way, like the way this game plays out is perfect for a Scargrounds deck, where it's just like I have a very passive hand and it's like a mid-range-ish mirror. This is like what Scargrounds needs as a deck to be able to win. So we can try to put a little bit of pressure on his like weak turns. Here, I mean, he has a decent time playing Braum or something. Okay, so we have an all-right attack. That's fine. He can do some kind of trick block. It's kind of hard for him to actually trick out here. He's not going to be running like Fury of the North. God, whatever happened to that card? Fury of the North? That card was nuts. It's not... I don't think it's that it got nerfed, but Combat Tricks just got so power creeped, man. Combat Tricks used to suck in this game, but now, like, Troll Chant and Sharpside and Pale Cascade and shit, like, you just can't run, like, yeah, Fury of the North like you could do anymore. Fury used to be a better riposte. Yeah, back in the day. That was more about the meta at the time, though. Hush is also a combat trick. Yeah, that's a fair point as well.
Always 2 steps ahead.
So we've got a nice hands. Like, between Brittle and Sharpsight, we can do a lot of things with this hand. I mean, Ash doing a freeze block isn't bad. It's not really too punishable, honestly. If he has nothing and wins the game. Oh, I guess it does trigger the Scar Grounds if he survives. I mean, I'm expecting him to have an answer to this. He should have an answer to this. It's not worth it. So now we have to weigh different options. If he has a second Trundle, Ice Quake is hilariously effective on this board. And my Ash does actually want to, like, threaten value for the level up. We've got a triple trick, so we've got a pretty decent open attack. Let's think, like, what if we do develop and what if he does Ice Quake? I mean, it's his entire mana pool, so we can kill Trundle with something that we would play from hands, like our Yeti can even still potentially do it, or like buffed Fiora with Sharpsight could do it. It's not really that big of a deal. He can play like bulkier things than us. Wow, it's so interesting. I think my development here is actually better than open attacking. Isn't that the only punish? If we didn't draw this Enraged Yeti, developing wouldn't be worth considering. But I've got a strong development between like Yeti and Icefield Archer. And I don't think his deck, apart from like that Ice Quake line, has amazing punish for this. Like, this Enraged Yeti is a very big deal. So that's kind of like how we just need to play against a lot of things. We just consider like what punishes he has to develop. Ice Quake is the only common one I can think of. Certain units could be like different degrees of punishers, but because this is a 5/5 and I own the board, and I'm afraid of like some big heavy like spell trick hands from him, this is a good development just because of the stats on this. And we played it out in our head, like if he uses Ice Quake, then he's down to 1 mana, so he has no re-response. We can Sharpsight the Fiora. She'll be a 2/2 after the Ice Quake resolves, but that'll still be enough to kill the Trundle, because the Trundle will be a 1/2 after Ice Quake. Okay, so he's got Tarkaz. Interesting. So this allows me to, you know, go deeper into the development. This is the Icefield Archer that we wanted. Yep, Icefield is good here. And it shouldn't matter what we freeze, I don't think. Are we always freezing the 2 big ones? Actually, maybe we want to freeze Trundle instead of the little guy. If we're using Brittle Steel this turn, then this freezes better. Yeah, let's do this. He'd have Tough. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, that's a fair point. I actually forgot about the Tough. That does actually change it. And we've got exactly enough mana for our other things. So here, you know, his Tarkaz is bigger than our Enraged Yeti, but he spent his mount on it, which means now we can play the Archer. So our development was 2 things, and his is 1 big thing. In this case, I think I do want to just like pre-Brittle Steel the Stalking Wolf and threaten it with the Fiora while everything else just drags in. This looks pretty good. It's just kind of a spooky attack. This Ash is... Wait, this Ash can level up here? Wait. Do I just lethal? Wait a second. I think I actually just tried for this. Okay. Neat. Whee! That's a lot of damage. Is homie just dead? I mean, at 4 mana, he can't do a ton here. He's -9. What the fuck? Yeah, me too, buddy. Yeah, I didn't even realize that would be so beyond lethal. Like, he has very far from anything there. So yeah, that's a good example of like something that Ash can do that the Fiora Shen version just can't do at all, right? And yeah, that's just a good example of this version of Fiora. And like why developing there is good. Basically, if you have good developmental plays, you just ask yourself, you know, what punishes this? And ultimately, if we had open attacked, we wouldn't have had that opportunity at all, right? Like, we had the double unit to his 1 unit. If he had just passed back, then of course we get a 5/5 for free. And there's no good Ice Quake there. Although, yes, we forgot about the tough. Like, the Ice Quake's still not great, but yes. Like, we couldn't have killed the Trundle that turn.